It's June Pride Month, and we celebrate the riots of Stonewall of June 1969 as the beginning of the modern LGBTQ plus civil rights movement. In 2023, Pride will be celebrated in June as a protest. Historian Sidney Moore said, quote, "Disregard for the past will never do us any good. Without it, we really don't know who we are. Explore the world. You get smarter, and then you learn how to not make the same mistakes as before," end quote. These two intersections join us today with my special guest, Richard Gray, Senior Vice President at Visit Lauderdale. The history of LGBTQ plus civil rights from Stonewall in 1969 and the importance of remembering our history at a new exhibit that Richard was celebrated at, History Fort Lauderdale. Welcome to Unapologetically Queer. I'm your host, Al Ferguson, and I am proud to talk to some of the most interesting people that are interesting to our LGBTQ plus community. At Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, our mission is based on the 10 pillars of the LGBTQ plus community, including the Black community, Latino, lesbian and queer women, trans, students and youth, seniors, business, social justice, and faith. We know it's June Pride Month, but some are asking this year, why do you need a Pride Parade? Or even, why do you need a June Pride Month? So, let's find out. History Fort Lauderdale has a month-long retrospective called Take Pride, a retrospective of LGBTQ plus life in South Florida. One such influential personality is here with us today. History Fort Lauderdale calls a pioneer, and I'm going to ask him if he likes that word, because it might be older. Richard Gray has been recognized as an innovator and named among the 100 most influential LGBTQ plus people of 2020 by Out Magazine. Richard is currently working at Visit Lauderdale and as the Senior Vice President of Inclusion and Accessibility. Born in London, he moved to New York in 1982 as an investment banker. In 91, he made Fort Lauderdale his home when he created the legendary Royal Palms Resort. And in 1995, he developed Greater Fort Lauderdale's highly successful LGBTQ plus marketing initiative. So first off, Richard Gray, welcome, and I understand, let's get it right off the table, I understand you're unapologetically queer. Is that correct?
I am extremely queer. But first of all, I want to say, Happy Pride.
Yes, Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
And extremely is a very strong adjective. All right, let's get it right off the table. They called you a pioneer. Do gay men like to be called pioneer if it has anything to do with longevity or age?
Well, I was flattered, put it like that.
All right.
I always think things like that are like the icing on the cake. But for me, it's sort of, I'd rather be in the trenches, you know, helping our community grow, making things happen.
Yeah, it celebrates career. And let me give you some examples of that. Under Richard's guidance, Greater Fort Lauderdale was the first tourism board in America to start an LGBTQ plus department. Pause there and let that digest. And still to this day remains the only Convention and Visitors Bureau in North America with a department designated solely to LGBTQ plus outreach, the only one. He is an inductee into the IGLT, the Travel Association International's Hall of Fame, a Fort Lauderdale hometown hero and recipient of the Gay Plus Award for Achievement from MTV Logo. Under Gray's direction, Visit Lauderdale launched the groundbreaking Celebrate You campaign, which is a global first. Gray believes this is the best campaign to date and underscores Greater Fort Lauderdale's diversity. Greater Fort Lauderdale is dedicated to being a destination where all people are welcomed, regardless of religion, gender, gender expression, body size, race, or disability. Disability was the most recent addition to that campaign. The historic campaign includes trans, drag, lesbian, gay, non-binary, disabled, straight, and minorities in a very broad way. Gray added black and brown to the pride colors as part of the new campaign to show Greater Fort Lauderdale's commitment and belief in the black and brown communities. This was the first DMO, which means Destination Marketing Organization, to add these colors to its flag. And this year, as you know, we face unprecedented challenges from a presidential candidate, the governor's mansion, and radical anti-LGBT voices. And I'm going to show you a video now of how Visit Lauderdale responded to those challenges. All right, Richard, so the Bureau makes the commitment to have this kind of messaging. I understand it's getting rave responses. Tell me what went into the choice of doing that in the political environment we're living now.
Well, the creation of hashtag WeAreVL was absolutely critical for us as a destination. You know, as you mentioned earlier, we've been in this platform for 27 years. So when the governor announced the Don't Say Gay bill, we wanted to respond. You have to look at this destination. We're a very unusual destination. And by that, I mean we're what's called a minority-majority county. So a third of the population here is black, a third of the population is Latino, and a third of the population is white. And we have per capita one of the largest LGBT populations in the country. LGBT tourism thrives here. You know, since we launched our campaign 27 years ago, very quickly, you know, we found gold, I call it, at the end of the rainbow. It also coincided with the World Trade Center, and it was incredible. Travel completely shut down then. And then within weeks, once air opened and hotels opened, who filled up all the hotels in Greater Fort Lauderdale? Nothing other than gay men and lesbians. So we're very, very fortunate to have such a loyal following and also a very large LGBT plus community. So we wanted to make a stance, but we wanted to create a campaign that we felt would let people know that Greater Fort Lauderdale is a destination that welcomes everyone under the sun. For us, that was absolutely critical in these times.
You know, it's interesting to me because a lot of people in our community, in our LGBTQ community, and a lot of people outside of our community may not realize why tourism is important to them. It doesn't digest to them of this affects me in some way. Try to help us understand, why is tourism and people traveling to Fort Lauderdale and Broward County important to us?
In a nutshell, tourism creates jobs. Short and sweet. If we look at the LGBT plus platform, we receive over 1 million LGBT travelers a year. That's just travelers on holiday here. Plus, you then have business travelers coming here for conferences, meetings, and whatever. So it is a multi-billion-dollar market for Broward County.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the early days when we started, it was called a niche market, but it's not a niche market. We've completely integrated. And if you look at our new campaign, Everyone Under the Sun, you will see that we have integrated non-binary, we've integrated trans, we've integrated disabled, we've integrated gay, lesbian, I mean plus size, drag, I mean everything has been integrated. And we are, I'm pretty confident in saying that we are probably the only destination that has completely integrated all markets. So our ads, we have an ad called Everyone Under the Sun, and that ad could run in any magazine in the country. It could run for the black market, it could run for the gay market, or we could run it in the New York Times.
It's also interesting that Visit Lauderdale's commitment to talk about Fort Lauderdale broadly and Broward County specifically to coming to the county. Really, Visit Lauderdale is doing the exact same thing that our progressive rainbow flag represents. Right. We're representing everybody, and so the destination is doing the exact same thing of welcoming everybody to the destination. A lot of people also don't realize, I just want to make sure you say it in terms of jobs. Jobs are created because people bring money here.
Exactly.
They stay in a hotel room, they pay taxes, and that helps to fund continued marketing of the destination. But it adds to people working in hotels, to building new hotels, restaurants, attractions, people shop in the stores. It's a trickle down. Right. The Republicans, Ronald Reagan told us this 40 years ago, it's a trickle down economy. This is the epitome of what you're talking about, that LGBT does for our community.
I would say it's core. It's a core market for us, without doubt. And then you throw in allies. Which is, you know, an even bigger core. And people come here because they love the destination. Obviously, they come here for the beaches and whatever. The LGBT community comes here, obviously, because Wilton Manors is a thriving mecca. But overall, you know, we're established. All our marketing has worked, and it comes from our heart. I mean, we market ourselves because it's who we are. It's part of the DNA of this destination. So, you know, once again, the We Are VL video, I wanted everyone to know who we are. Remind them, this is, you know, we're good. This is a great destination to come to.
When I came down here, we started It's Happening All 5 years ago, we created this moniker of we're the gayest place on planet Earth, and we've been very loyal to saying it over and over again. And I have many, many friends from my old RuPaul days in West Hollywood and Provincetown and New York. And we always tease each other. No, Palm Springs. We're the better gay community. We're the better gay community. I think I want to play the Trump card. I have friends in Los Angeles and New York.
Is that the right word to use?
Oh yeah. Wait, you might be right. I want to play the ace.
Okay, I
want to play the
card.
ace in the card. Right. I prefer that card too. Of something that happened in February that was a world first for this destination. In the course of 30 days, you had Atlantis do a 6,000 passenger ship.
We did.
The next week you had Vakaya do a 5,000 passenger ship. The next week you had Olivia 1 do a 3,000 passenger ship. And the next week you had Olivia 2 do 3,000 passengers. So over the course of 30 days, 4 complete LGBT charters was a world record, had never been done before, and all of those people that came and flew into South Florida stayed in hotels, ate in restaurants, and shopped in shops both before and after all of those cruises. Now, to our friends in West Hollywood and New York City, tell them why you're so much better.
Because we think outside of the box.
Exactly.
Because one of the things that I wanted to do was market to the cruise lines. And when I saw there was this opportunity that we had 4 back-to-back cruises, I knew that was a global first. Then I looked at the economic impact, which was around about $13 million. And so we actually, as Visit Lauderdale, worked with Vakaya directly. We did an onboard activation with, for example, with all their guests, social media marketing. We did the same thing with Olivia, 2 back-to-back lesbian sold out cruises, completely sold out, not an empty cabin on either of the ships on Holland America. So one of the things I like to do that we do better, if you like, than other destinations, and other destinations are great. Don't think that they're not great, but we might.
They're not Lauderdale.
We might be greater.
Yes, right.
Than greater Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale.
But we think outside the box. We don't necessarily use traditional, what I call travel avenues to market. We do things differently. We work with the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C., and it works.
Yeah. One of the reasons why you've agreed to sit down and talk is in the promotion of that. One of the reasons that Fort Lauderdale and Broward County is such a great community broadly, but very specifically for the LGBTQ community, is we celebrate all kinds of things. We're not just one thing.
Right.
And one example of that is what's going on at History Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. To celebrate June Pride Month, they're doing this exhibition at the Galleria Mall on Sunrise. You must go and see it. And it is a photo, video, costume, other kinds of activation of the history of LGBT in South Florida. And they've launched here for Pride Month, and you were one of the recipients that was honored, one of the pioneers is
again,
the word.
That word.
Now, we come back to that word again.
That aged word.
Yes, that aged word. But when they call you up and say, Richard, we want to recognize you in this exhibition as one of the leaders or one of the significant contributors to the history of our LGBTQ community. That's a different word. Museum and history are different words than Out Magazine or this television program at Happening Out or at Hotspots Magazine. When you get that phone call, you're going to be recognized in this way, what was your reaction?
Well, obviously I felt very proud, but if I look at it, we're all spokes in a wheel. I'm a leader in tourism. I've been a voice for the LGBT, travel side, for over 20 years. It's a team effort. It's not just one person or 2 people or 3 people. I mean, it's a complete team effort, and I think that sort of collaboration, if you like, I think is very inspiring. It's like I like to surround myself by people that I think that are smarter than myself, or who inspire me, who have journeys that really catch me and take my breath away. When I look at the trans community, for example, they inspire me to do bigger and better things for them. Winning an award, being recognized as a pioneer for my work, makes me want to do more.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me want
better.
It makes me want to accomplish, because everyone says, well, you've done this, what's next? Well, I don't know, and then all of a sudden something happens, and then all of a sudden transgender came along, and then we've got through transgender.
A perfect example of the illustration that you're talking about is you're at this exhibit that is recognizing the history of LGBT South Florida, and you're identified, which probably most people don't even know at this point in your life or at this point in our community, that you were the inspiration of the Royal Palms, a legendary guest house out at Fort Lauderdale Beach. And that transition leads to Visit Lauderdale and the leadership of arguably, and there's not even an argument, of the most successful LGBT destination management organization in history.
I think for me,
evolution.
I think for me, it was always having the vision. It was always fighting for inclusion and equality were really high on my list. And one of the things that I learned really early on in my career was that I had a big platform. And I said to myself, use that platform. And so I used that platform to grow myself, but to also educate people and show support for our community. I always go back to trans, because trans was probably one of the most emotional journeys I had in my career. Just learning about the transgender community and working with the transgender community often moved me to tears, but it inspired me so much that I wanted to do more. More wasn't enough. I wanted to do even more, because our own community needed to be educated. Gay men needed to be educated about trans people. Lesbians had to be educated about
And you
trans.
had to take the challenge of learning.
And I embraced that, and I used my, I don't want to use the word power, but my position, you know, my influence. It takes a long-term time. I think there's a saying, you know, it takes years to earn respect, but 2 seconds to lose it. And so I wanted to use everything that I've learned to help especially the trans.
You know, it's interesting to me because so much of the point that when I hold up what Fort Lauderdale and Broward County does, I hear people in other quarters around the country and in other places in the world and say, well, it's so easy for you because you have Fort Lauderdale. And I always remind them, it wasn't always that.
No.
It took effort. And the perfect illustration, which you learn in this exhibit for History Lauderdale at the Galleria, is that we have a mayor, Dean Trentalis, today, and most times he's just the mayor of Fort Lauderdale. But for this moment of conversation and the exhibit, he's the gay mayor of Fort Lauderdale. And just in the 1970s, we had a mayor in Fort Lauderdale, which you see in this exhibit, who said very publicly and made national news by saying there are no gay people in Fort Lauderdale. That was just in the 1970s.
Right.
It took work to bring Fort Lauderdale to the point of where Fort Lauderdale is now. As an example of that, Patricia Zahler, Executive Director of History Fort Lauderdale, said about this exhibit, quote, History Fort Lauderdale is proud to showcase the valuable legacies of our LGBTQ businesses and influential leaders who have worked to make our great city an ideal place to live, work, and play. Education and tolerance are paramount as we continue to build upon these accomplishments, safeguard our progress, and move forward to ensure that Fort Lauderdale remains a welcoming place to live and visit for all during Pride Month, but especially beyond, end quote. Amazing observation that we can't take anything for granted.
No.
We must continue to fight.
We must always fight. And another thing that I want to add to that is that we must always be visible. We must always use our position to be visible.
Richard, I want to ask you about how Visit Lauderdale can be good for other communities around the country. I watched a lunch at the Fort Lauderdale LGBT Chamber that you and Stacy Ritter, the Executive Director of Visit Lauderdale, did. And one of my questions was about you have created this platform, Senior Vice President, focusing on diversity and inclusion for a community. I asked the question that I was surprised that more bureaus, destination management organizations have not been as vocal in their support as Fort Lauderdale, and to hold up Fort Lauderdale's success to say this is a path for you to do even better in the political environment, the visibility that you just talked about. Why do you think we haven't seen as much embracement to the degree that we've seen out of Fort Lauderdale?
I think that's a great question. And to be honest with you, I haven't got a clue, because I've said to myself time and time again, why are there not other major destinations that have departments like my department? I mean, why? I mean, the numbers speak to themselves. And not only that, it's just the right market, the right thing to do. So in many ways, it's been to our advantage because we've led the way. We are global leaders. We're not just leaders in this country. You know, the platform that we have, it's a global platform. You know, when I'm on the road, whether it be in Brazil or Argentina and whatever, we're highlighting inclusion and we're educating. And I think that's key. Is one of the things that we've done over the years is we've used all of our marketing to educate the consumer, to educate the traveler on inclusion, on diversity, on acceptance, on equality. I mean, we really have done that. And it goes back to the fact that this is a destination that's a minority-majority county, that's in our DNA, that we genuinely welcome everybody. We really do. We welcome everybody. And there are very few destinations and I've traveled all over the world that are as welcoming as Greater Fort Lauderdale is.
I'm curious, the big elephant in the room is the
I
presidential.
love elephants.
Yes, you like elephants. Is the presidential candidate, and what we've watched this session, again, a second year in a row of what we've watched on attacks on LGBT from the governor's mansion and in Florida. Do you think we're in a situation where it's ultimately it will harm some of the efforts that you have? Will it have effects on people's decision to come to Fort Lauderdale or Florida, or don't you think it'll affect us?
All I can tell you is what I know now. Are we seeing a decline in leisure travel to the destination? Absolutely not. Are we seeing some businesses having conventions? Are we seeing a decline there? Yes, we are. Meeting planners are putting Florida off the list. So we can't even gauge that because we don't even know. We can't quantify that number because we don't even know, because we haven't got that far down the page, if you like. But our focus has always been the leisure market. You know, the business traveler is very important, especially with our convention center expansion, our new 800-room Omni hotel that's going to be built or in process of being built. So we're looking obviously to grow our meetings business because we feel this is such a great destination where you can go to the beach, you can enjoy the intercoastal, but you can also go to a hotel and have a meeting. So the meeting side is slightly off, definitely, but the leisure travel isn't. And, you know, we are going to...
Are you optimistic it might turn around, or do you think we might be in this for a while?
No, I think we're in this for a while. I think there's no doubt in my mind. Yeah. You know, we're in this for another year.
You know, as candidly and as quickly as you answer that question, Visit Lauderdale is by its very nature not a political organization, and I understand it doesn't weigh into the politics. Do you worry about your position and your voice, and does the Bureau worry about its position of having seemingly these two intersections of contradiction, which is the embracement of diversity with the fight of anti-diversity? Is that something that you think about, you talk about it there?
Certainly think about it, but I think what we focus on is our community first and foremost. And we know how diverse and inclusive our resident community is. And we also know who our travelers are. And we know that they are allies, they're LGBT, they're an inclusive, our travelers are inclusive. So that is our focus. We focus on that, and we can't focus on anything else at the moment. It's all about marketing the destination and just continually, you've got to do it, you've got to continually remind the traveler that you can come to Greater Fort Lauderdale and you can be welcomed with wide open arms.
Yeah, okay. History Fort Lauderdale's exhibit is interesting because one of the things that you're going to see is a photo tribute wall, and it features lifestyle and significant event photographs from Michael Murphy Photography. He sat down here this month in talking about this exhibit. Murphy has been capturing historic moments and memorable individuals that have shaped the South Florida LGBTQ landscape for decades. The exhibit includes the showing of Open Dialogues. It's an award-winning short film featuring and captures the personal narratives of LGBTQ+ voices, actually very similar to Visit Lauderdale's commitment in their marketing. It was produced by Art and Culture Center Hollywood. It was directed by Miami-based filmmaker Freddie Rodriguez, and thank you, it was funded by the Community Foundation of Broward. When you went to the exhibit and you went to the opening evening and you had time to digest the images and the display, what was your reaction to what you saw?
It's just we've come a long way. I know we may be back treading a little bit at the moment, but we've come a long, long way, you know. throw in marriage equality as well, we've really come a long way.
Yeah. We saw pictures of the Marlin Beach resort and of the Copa, Royal Palms, other embracements, the changes, the dramatic changes that have taken place in Fort Lauderdale. Wilton Manor's emergence of being one of the most important LGBT drives, streets in America. Where do you think all of this is going? Where we're at now, what you hope to see for Fort Lauderdale and Broward County, what do you think is going to be where all this is going?
So I would say that when I look at the evolution, if you like, of the destination, how we've evolved since I've been in a part of Broward County, world class. We are going world class. There's no doubt about it. When I look at the hotels that we have on the beach, when I look at the growth of our airport, when I look at the growth of the cruise port, and I see, how many celebrity ships are here, Disney's coming, Ritz-Carlton, Viking. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Yeah. And not only that, you just see all this massive, development going on in town, condos, apartment rental buildings. I truly believe we're a world-class destination. We're not there yet, but we will be. And I think if you look at our marketing is edgy, it's provocative, a little bit provocative, it's cosmopolitan. We might push the envelope a little bit. It's highly inclusive and diverse. And so I think we have a broad appeal. And I also look at it like this. If a destination like Fort Lauderdale doesn't appeal to you, well, then don't come. Yeah. Go somewhere else. Yeah. Go somewhere else. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
There's Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
There are other places in Florida that you can go to. That's fine. Yeah. We want everyone that comes here, we know they're going to be welcome, but we want them to be happy too.
Yeah. Last related question I wanted to ask you about is this being June Pride Month. The exhibit that History Lauderdale is doing is a retrospective to celebrate the LGBTQ community and its history here in South Florida. Arguably one of the most nervous approaches to June Pride Month that I have experienced in my life, and that's a long experienced Pride Month life. We're getting ready to do the event at Stonewall in Wilton Drive, and by all accounts, it's just going to be mammoth. June Pride Month for you personally and for Visit Lauderdale, what does it mean to you?
I think it's about people feeling accepted, people feeling welcome. I love Pride. For me, Pride, when I attend a Pride and I'm around lesbian, gay, trans, whatever, I feel like I'm walking on air. It just is a wonderful feeling of safety and inclusivity, if you like. And it's also, for me, inspirational. I mean, as I said to you earlier, I like to be inspired. I need to be inspired to be creative, to want to do better, to do a better job for the community. And I think Pride brings that out in me. When I feel that unity, when I feel that warmth, when I hear people laughing. I mean, I love to hear people laugh, and everyone says, hi, how are you? Happy Pride. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
Makes me feel good.
And there's no better place in America than you can do it, which is Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, which is why we have Visit Lauderdale, the only and most successful LGBT destination marketing organization in the entire world. You must see this exhibit. It's at the Galleria. I said last question, but one quick question. When you went to the exhibit, I couldn't help but notice, and I thought of you actually. I couldn't go to the opening night because I was at Gay Days. But when I saw it when I returned, I thought of you, and actually I laughed because the exhibit is right next to Swarovski, and nobody represents sparkly crystals better than Richard Gray. Your reaction to being near Swarovski?
You mean I'm a sparkle?
Yes, you're a sparkle. You must go and see this exhibit at the Galleria. It runs all month. Don't let it pass you. You're going to see pictures that you have never seen before and you can't see. One example is Dean Trentellis long before anybody knew it was Dean Trentellis in a tank top in Provincetown, I believe. You must go and see the exhibit, and we congratulate Visit Lauderdale for putting it on. Richard Gray, thank you for joining us today on Unapologetically
Thank
Queer.
you so much. Thank you, Al. You're the best.